I said, "Hey, sweetie." The alien princess blushed and said, "Yes, darling," and we laughed. The Great Hall of Stars was larger than any city square on Earth. Its ceiling curved like the night sky, glowing with moving lights that showed distant galaxies. Thousands of beings from different worlds stood or floated in silence. Some had skin like stone, some like liquid glass, and others shimmered with soft light. Every species followed strict rules here. No sudden movements, no informal speech, no mistakes. Humans were new to this place. Evan Carter stood among the human delegation, his hands relaxed at his sides. He wore the formal dark uniform chosen by Earth's leaders, but it still felt stiff and strange. Around him, other humans stood straight and careful, afraid to do something wrong. Humanity had waited decades for this moment. Joining the Interstellar Council was not easy. One mistake could cost Earth its future among the stars. At the far end of the hall, seated on a raised platform, was Princess Lyra of the Valorian star realm. She was young by her people's standards, but already powerful. Her people were tall and graceful, with skin that reflected light like polished silver. Her eyes glowed softly, showing thoughts and emotions she was trained to hide. From the moment she was born, Lyra had been taught one thing above all else: control. A Valorian royal never showed surprise, never showed warmth, never showed weakness. Lyra watched the humans carefully. They were small, soft, short-lived. Compared to ancient races that lived for centuries, humans were like sparks that burned bright and fast. Many in the council believed humans had little to offer: no great fleets, no ancient wisdom, no legendary strength. And yet, something about them felt different. The formal introductions began. Species after species spoke using perfect words and ancient titles. Each sentence was measured and careful. Evan listened, trying not to yawn. Everything sounded the same: honor, duty, balance, tradition. When it was nearly the human's turn, Evan felt a strange calm settle over him. He remembered why he was here. Not because he was the smartest, not because he was the strongest. He was here because Earth's leaders believed humans understood something others had forgotten: how to connect. The speaker announced the Valorian princess. Lyra rose slowly. The entire hall bowed as one. Even the oldest species showed respect. Her voice was calm and musical as she spoke words of welcome to the new species from Earth. She finished and returned to her seat. Silence followed. It was now the humans' turn to respond. The lead human diplomat stepped forward and began reading prepared words. Evan could feel the tension. Every sentence was careful, too careful. The words sounded empty, like they were afraid to be alive. Then something unexpected happened. The diplomat's voice faltered. His eyes shifted toward Evan. It was only a moment, but Evan understood. The prepared words were failing. The room was listening but not feeling. Evan stepped forward before he fully realized what he was doing. Gasps spread through the hall. Humans were not scheduled to speak individually. Security drones hummed softly, adjusting their aim. Lyra's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. Evan stopped a respectful distance away. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed calm. He knew the rules. He also knew humans had survived by breaking rules when needed. He looked at the princess and smiled. "Hey, sweetie," he said, gently and honestly. The words echoed through the hall like a dropped crystal. Time froze. Several council members stiffened in shock. Translators struggled for a moment, unsure how to classify the phrase. A few species reacted with anger, others with confusion. Speaking so casually to royalty was unthinkable. The security drones locked onto Evan. Lyra's advisors leaned toward her, alarmed. For the first time in her life, Princess Lyra did not know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not as a ruler, not as a symbol, not as a duty, but as a person. Her training screamed at her to react with cold authority. Instead, something warm rose in her chest. Her eyes widened slightly. Color flowed across her silver skin, a soft shade of rose, A blush. The hall gasped again, louder this time. Lyra lifted a hand, stopping her guards before they could act. She stood slowly, her expression changing from shock to something softer, something dangerous to show. She looked directly at Evan. "Yes, darling," she replied. For a heartbeat the universe seemed to pause. Then Evan laughed. It was not loud or mocking. It was warm, surprised, and real. The kind of laugh humans shared when something unexpected felt right. Without thinking, Lyra laughed too. Her laughter rang like gentle bells, clear and bright. It echoed through the Hall of Stars, touching every corner. No one had ever heard a Valorian royal laugh in public. Council members stared in disbelief. Some felt discomfort. Others felt something stir inside them, memories of emotions long buried under duty. The security drones powered down. The moment had passed, but nothing would ever be the same. Lyra regained her composure, but the warmth did not fully leave her eyes. She studied Evan with new interest. "You are unusual," she said calmly. Evan nodded. "Yeah, we get that a lot." A few beings in the hall shifted, uncertain how to react. The human diplomat swallowed hard but said nothing. It was too late to undo what had happened. Lyra turned back to the council. "The humans," she said, "will be granted full voice in the Alliance discussions." Murmurs spread instantly. This was not planned. "This session is concluded," Lyra added. As the hall began to empty, Evan felt his legs finally start to shake. What had he just done? Lyra paused before leaving. She glanced back at him once more. For a brief moment there was no crown, no politics, no stars, just two beings who had shared a laugh. That night across the Alliance networks, rumors spread faster than light. The human who spoke without fear, the princess who blushed, the laugh that broke centuries of silence. And somewhere deep within the ancient systems of the galaxy, a quiet truth awakened. Humanity had arrived, not with weapons or commands, but with something far more powerful. A heart that refused to stay silent. News spread fast through star networks and quiet channels. The story was repeated again and again, changing slightly each time. A human had spoken to a Valorian princess as if she were a friend. The princess had not punished him. She had laughed. For many species, this moment felt strange and uncomfortable. The galaxy was built on distance, distance between rulers and citizens, between allies and rivals, between emotions and decisions. Humans had stepped across that distance without fear. Evan Carter did not feel like a hero. He sat alone in his assigned quarters, staring out at the slow-moving stars. His room was small compared to alien standards, but it felt safe. Too safe. His hands still shook when he remembered the security drones locking onto him. He had not planned the moment. He had simply felt it. Now he wondered if he had gone too far. A soft light appeared near the door. A Valorian symbol glowed, signaling a private summons. Evan stood slowly. Two Valorian guards waited outside. They were tall and calm, their expressions unreadable. They did not speak. They only gestured for him to follow. They led him through silent corridors that curved like flowing water. Everything here was beautiful and controlled. Evan felt like a loud thought walking through a quiet mind. They stopped before a wide door made of shining crystal. One guard spoke at last. "The princess will see you." The door opened. Princess Lyra stood near a wide window looking out at the stars. She wore no crown now. Her clothing was simple, flowing, and soft in color. She looked less like a symbol and more like a person. She turned as Evan entered. The guards left and the door closed silently behind him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You are not afraid," Lyra said finally. Evan shrugged. I just didn't let it win." Lyra studied him closely. "Most beings fear speaking freely to power. Humans fear silence more," Evan replied. She considered that. "You embarrassed many powerful figures," she said. Evan smiled faintly. "I tend to do that." A small smile touched her lips before she caught herself. "You laugh easily." "Life's short," Evan said. "We learn to laugh before it passes." That answer stayed with her. Lyra gestured toward a seat. Evan sat, careful not to appear careless. He could feel her attention like a gentle weight. "Why did you speak to me that way?" she asked. Evan thought for a moment. "Because you looked lonely." The words surprised even him. Lyra looked away toward the stars again. "Royalty is never alone." Evan did not argue. He simply said, "Sometimes that's the loneliest kind." Silence filled the room, not awkward but thoughtful. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt seen, not as a ruler, not as a symbol of peace, but as someone who carried the weight of an entire people. She turned back to him. "My people believe emotions weaken leadership." Evan shook his head. "On Earth, we learned they remind us why we lead at all." That night they spoke for hours, about Earth's oceans and storms, about Valorian cities built from light and memory, about how humans told stories to survive fear and how Valorians trained themselves to forget fear entirely. By the time Evan returned to his quarters, something had changed. He was no longer just a representative. He was a bridge. Meanwhile, not everyone welcomed this change. In distant chambers of the Alliance, leaders of older and stronger empires gathered. They watched recordings of the Council incident with cold eyes. "The human influence spreads quickly," said one ancient being. "They weaken structure," said another. "A laughing princess invites disorder," a third added. Plans were made not of open conflict but of pressure. The alliance began to strain, trade routes slowed, old disagreements returned, council sessions grew tense. Princess Lyra noticed immediately. She requested Evan's presence more often, not publicly but quietly. She trusted his instincts. During one council debate, voices rose sharply. Accusations flew between species who had stood together for centuries. Evan watched from behind the human delegation. He leaned toward Lyra and spoke softly. "They're scared," she frowned. "Of what?" "Of change," he said. "It means losing control." Lyra nodded slowly. When the debate reached a breaking point, she stood. The hall fell silent. "Before we decide," she said, "I invite the human envoy to speak." Shock rippled through the room. Evan stepped forward, heart pounding. He could feel every eye on him. "I won't talk about power," he said simply. "You already understand power. I want to talk about trust." Some scoffed. Others listened despite themselves. "Humans were not strong when we began," Evan continued. "We survived because we learned to work together even when it was uncomfortable." He looked around the room. "You built an alliance to avoid destruction. But you forgot something important." "What is that?" someone demanded. Evan met their gaze. "Peace isn't just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of understanding." The room was quiet, no threats, no commands, just truth. Princess Lyra felt pride rise in her chest. Not the formal pride of royalty, but something warmer. After the session, several delegates approached the human group. Not all agreed, but many were curious. Humanity was being noticed. That night, Lyra stood alone again at the window. She thought of Evan's laugh, his honesty, his courage to speak without armor. For the first time, she wondered if strength and warmth could exist together. Far beyond the council, in shadowed systems, watchers took note. The humans were small, but they were dangerous in a way no fleet could stop. They reminded the galaxy how to feel. And soon, the galaxy would be tested. Council halls that were once calm now felt heavy. Old allies spoke with careful words. Some meetings ended without agreement. Others ended in quiet anger. The laughter that once echoed through the Hall of Stars felt like a distant memory. Humanity stood at the center of it all. Evan Carter felt it every time he walked through the station. Some beings greeted him with curiosity. Others watched with cold eyes. Humans had not raised weapons or demanded power, yet they had changed something important. That frightened those who depended on rigid order. Princess Lyra sensed the danger before anyone else. She had been raised to feel shifts in balance, like changes in gravity. And now the balance was breaking. Reports arrived daily, trade delays, broken promises, subtle threats disguised as concern. Powerful factions were testing the alliance, pushing it toward collapse without open conflict. One name appeared again and again in private discussions. The Korvath Dominion. The Korvath were ancient, proud, and vast. Their fleets guarded entire regions of space. They believed strength came from control and silence. Emotion to them was weakness. To the Korvath, humans were a flaw in the system. A private council was called. Only leaders and selected advisors were allowed. Evan stood behind Lyra, his presence already a statement. Some objected, but Lyra's authority held. The Korvath representative appeared as a towering figure of dark crystal and fire. Its voice echoed through the chamber. The alliance grows unstable, it declared. The cause is clear. Eyes turned toward the humans. Emotional influence weakens unity, the Korvath continued. The human presence must be limited. A murmur spread. Evan felt anger rise, but he stayed still. This was not the moment to react. Princess Lyra stood slowly. Humans have violated no law, she said calmly. They violate tradition, the Korvath replied. Tradition is order. Lyra met its gaze without fear. Tradition that cannot adapt becomes a cage. The words sent a shock through the chamber. The Korvath's glow darkened. Then the Alliance must choose. The threat hung heavy in the air. If the Alliance sided with humanity, the Korvath might withdraw support. That support kept entire systems safe. Fear spread quietly. After the meeting, Lyra and Evan walked together through a quiet corridor. They want us isolated, Evan said. They want control, Lyra replied, and they are willing to fracture the Alliance to keep it. Evan looked at her. What do you want? She stopped walking. For the first time, she said softly, I want something that cannot be measured. Evan understood. That night, Lyra made a decision that would change everything. She requested a full council address, open to all members and observers. Such openness was rare during unstable times. Many advised against it. She ignored them. The Hall of Stars filled once more. This time the air was tense. Representatives watched each other carefully. Some expected confrontation. Others feared collapse. Lyra stood alone at the center. My people taught me control, she began. They taught me that distance creates respect. Her voice carried across the hall. But distance also creates silence, she continued. And silence allows fear to grow. She turned slightly, gesturing toward Evan and the human delegation. Humans are not powerful by our standards, she said. They are short-lived, physically fragile, new to the stars. Some nodded in agreement. And yet, Lyra said, her voice strengthening, they remind us of something we have forgotten. The hall was silent. They remind us that leadership without connection becomes tyranny, she said. That unity without trust becomes hollow. The Korvath representative rose. This is sentiment, not strategy. Lyra faced it directly. Sentiment is why alliances exist, she replied. Without it, you have only control. Evan felt something shift. Lyra placed a hand over her chest, a Valorian gesture rarely used in public. I stand with humanity, she declared. Not because they are strong, but because they are honest. Gasps echoed. Several council members whispered urgently. This was unprecedented. The Korvath spoke again, cold and final. Then you risk everything. Lyra did not look away. Yes, she said, but I risk it together. For a moment, no one moved. Then something unexpected happened. A representative from a minor species stood. Humans helped us resolve a border dispute without force, they said. Another rose. They listened when no one else did. One by one, voices joined. Not all, but enough. The alliance did not break. The Korvath withdrew in silence, not in defeat but in warning. Later, Evan stood beside Lyra on a balcony overlooking the stars. You could have lost everything, he said quietly. She nodded. I know. Why do it? Evan asked. She looked at him, eyes glowing softly. Because when you spoke to me like a person, she said, you gave me something no throne ever did. What's that? Evan asked. Courage, she replied. Far away, Korvath fleets shifted positions. Observers noted human communication patterns spreading across allied systems. Training programs changed. Leaders spoke more openly. Humanity had not fired a single weapon, yet the galaxy felt different. A test was coming. And when it arrived, humanity would be ready, not with fear but with something far stronger. The courage to stand together. It came with silence. Trade routes monitored by the Alliance began to go quiet. Long-range sensors detected large movements near the borders of Korvath space. Not attacks, positioning, pressure. A reminder of power. The Korvath Dominion was making its final move. They did not plan open conflict. That would unite the Alliance against them. Instead, they aimed to force a choice through fear. Withdraw support, cut shared defenses, let smaller systems feel exposed. Fear would do the rest. Princess Lyra stood in the Hall of Stars, listening to the reports. Her expression was calm, but inside the weight pressed hard. The Alliance stood at a fragile edge. If enough members panicked, unity would shatter. Evan Carter stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes focused. "They're waiting for us to turn on each other," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. "They believe control always wins." Evan looked around the hall, at beings who had lived for centuries, who had built empires, who had forgotten how easily fear could rule them. "Then we don't give them fear," he said. "We give them trust." Several advisors frowned. "That is not a strategy," one said. Evan met their gaze. "It's the only one they can't counter." Lyra studied him for a long moment. Then she made a choice. She ordered the largest open broadcast in Alliance history. No closed doors, no private chambers, every world, every citizen, every leader. When the signal spread, millions watched. Some from crystal cities, some from deep ocean habitats, some from artificial moons or drifting stations. Princess Lyra appeared at the center of the projection. She did not wear her crown. "My people taught me to rule through distance," she began. "But today I speak to you without distance." Murmurs spread across the Alliance. "The Korvath believe fear will divide us," she continued. "They believe strength comes from silence." She paused. "They are wrong." She stepped aside. Evan stepped forward. He took a slow breath. "I'm not here to threaten anyone," he said. "Humans aren't good at that." A few quiet reactions rippled across the broadcast. "We don't have ancient fleets or perfect order," Evan continued. "What we have is experience." He looked directly into the camera. "We come from a world where fear tried to break us many times, and every time we learned something." The Alliance listened. "Fear grows when people feel alone," Evan said. "It shrinks when people feel seen." He gestured toward the stars behind him. "You built this alliance so no world would stand alone." His voice strengthened. "So stand together now." No shouting, no demands, just an invitation. For a long moment nothing happened. Then signals began to appear. One world restored trade routes. Another shared defensive data openly. A third sent a simple message: "We stand." Across the Alliance, systems answered. Not all, but enough. The Korvath response came quickly. Their representative appeared on the broadcast, towering and cold. "You choose chaos," it declared. "Emotion will undo you." Evan stepped forward again, unafraid. "No," he said. "We choose each other." The Korvath paused. They had prepared for fleets, for threats, for force. They had not prepared for unity without fear. The broadcast ended. Days passed. The Korvath fleets remained at the borders, but they did not advance. They waited. So did the Alliance. Then something remarkable happened. A Korvath observer vessel crossed into neutral space, alone, not as a threat, as a request. Princess Lyra met them with a small delegation. Evan stood beside her. The Korvath representative spoke with less certainty than before. "You risk instability," it said. Lyra replied calmly. "Stability without trust is already unstable." Evan added, "You don't have to join us. Just stop trying to break us." The Korvath studied them, two beings from very different worlds standing side by side without armor or fear. For the first time in recorded history, the Korvath hesitated. "We will observe," it said at last. It was not surrender. But it was not control, it was a beginning. Weeks later, the Hall of Stars felt different, lighter. Leaders spoke more openly. Smaller worlds had voices again. Humans were no longer seen as fragile newcomers. They were connectors, builders, reminders. Evan stood with Lyra at the edge of the hall, watching a new council session begin. "You changed the galaxy," Evan said quietly. Lyra shook her head. "No, you reminded it." She smiled, a real one, no longer hidden. "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" she asked. Evan laughed softly. "Hard to forget." She laughed with him, and a few nearby delegates smiled too. Laughter no longer caused shock. It caused hope. Across the stars, stories spread. Not about human weapons, not about human ships, but about a moment when a small voice spoke without fear, and an empire learned to listen. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as something rare and powerful, a species that refused to let fear have the final word. And somewhere deep in the vast silence of space, the galaxy smiled back.